All right. Well, for anybody who runs a team or works anywhere, you know that diversity is important. So give it up for Jamie Hampton telling us some stuff.
Thanks. Is it easy? Okay. Hi, my name is Jameson. You can call me Jamie. I'm Jamie Bash on Twitter. And I'm going to talk a little bit about identifying and avoiding microaggressions in the transgender community. If you want a diverse team, it's a really important thing to know what your diverse teammates are dealing with in their lives. So let's talk about it. First of all, what is a microaggression? I think microaggression is a really scary word for a lot of people, where it makes them feel like they're going to get accused of being intolerant when they don't feel like they're being intolerant. Really, a microaggression is like a small thing that invalidates someone else's identity, that if it happened to you once, it would be like kind of annoying and you'd go on with your life. But when it happens over and over and over, it gets more and more hurtful every time. So every marginalized community really has their own set of microaggressions, but I'm going to talk about the trans community. Number one, expecting marginalized people to be our educators. A lot of people in the general public maybe don't know a whole lot about what it's like to be in the trans community, and so it might seem harmless to ask a lot of questions to trans people you might know because you think, well, they know more. But the problem is that it's not really their job to be educators all the time. Some people really like to do education advocacy. I do. I'll do a brief sidebar of that. I'm Jamie. I'm transgender, which means I don't identify with the same gender that I was assigned at birth. I'm also non-binary, which means I don't really identify as male or female. It means that I use neutral pronouns, they, them, and it also means that I have really great hair. But the problem is that when I have to educate like that all the time to everyone I meet, it can be really tiring, and it can make you feel like you have to validate your identity for people to accept you. And if you don't feel up to educating people because you're tired or you've had a long day, sometimes people will say things to you like, well, if you don't teach me about it, how will I learn? You can educate yourself as much as you can. There's lots of resources. And if you really have questions that you do want to ask a trans person that you know, make sure they're comfortable answering those questions. That brings me to the next one, asking probing questions. This is like a real problem because a lot of people have this weird thing where they'll meet a trans person, they'll find out that they're trans, and suddenly they feel like they have the right to ask like a bunch of really personal questions that they wouldn't have asked before. Don't ask people's birth name. They changed it for a reason. They don't want you to know it. That's kind of the point. Don't ask people about their coming out story. It's just really personal. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows for a lot of people. You know, if you just met someone, you wouldn't ask them how they felt after their mom died. Like, it would be really personal. For the love of God, don't ask people about their genitals. It's so rude. Why would you do that? You don't do that to anyone. Basically, the moral is trans people are people. They're not just encyclopedias of gender theory. Another microaggression is underestimating the importance of pronouns. Pronouns are a really hot ticket issue in the trans community lately, and there's a reason. It's because if you respect someone's pronouns, it shows that you respect them as a person. But if you don't, then they don't feel respected as a person. Not respecting someone's pronouns can look a few ways. It can look like consistently always getting it wrong, even if you've been corrected. It can look like constantly complaining that it's too hard and putting a burden on you. Or it can just be refusing to try. You'd be surprised how many people aren't even willing to try at all. I've had a bunch of people in my life say, well, I'm not going to use singular they because it's not grammatically correct. First of all, that's wrong. It is grammatically correct. But even if they were right, that's basically saying I care more about proper grammar than I care about you as a person and your feelings. So ask people's pronouns. Don't assume them. And if someone asks you your pronouns, even if you think they should be obvious, don't get mad. Like, that's how you create a safe space for people to ask each other. Pro tip, if you get someone's pronouns wrong, that totally happens. Just apologize once, correct yourself, and move on. Apologizing over and over just brings unwanted attention to it. Number 4 is my last one for today. Excluding through language is also pretty much about assumptions. I think we all know what happens when you make too many assumptions. So here's a few. Don't assume that everyone you meet is cisgender, which means not transgender, and heterosexual. Not only does that exclude people, but it also reinforces this idea that that's the norm and that other people are weird. Why ask someone if they have a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband and wife when there's perfectly good gender-neutral terms for that? Why start your talk with ladies and gentlemen when you don't know if that applies to everybody in your audience? Speaking of which, don't assume that there are only two genders. I know that's really hard for some people, but like it's really hard for me when there's two bathrooms and neither of them are really right, and I have to fill out forms that aren't really right. If you're a software developer, pro tip, it takes about 5 seconds to put a third gender option on your website dropdown, and there's no reason not to do it. And non-binary people won't use your site unless you do it. I don't use sites that only have two gender options. So in conclusion, ask clarifying questions about people's identity and their pronoun usage, but don't demand answers to very personal or easily Googleable questions. Avoid gendered language and heteronormative assumptions. Put yourself in someone else's shoes and think about how it would make you feel. Be understanding, and people will genuinely appreciate that you're trying. Thank you very much. I'm Jamie, Jamie Bash on Twitter. Thank you.
All right, good job. OK, I don't know why I always walk over here thinking these are the microphones I have to use.